Is there a defensive big that the Lakers could pick up that'll offset Ayton's inability to defend consistently? So, first of all, the free agent market for centers is very limited. I talked yesterday about the Mark Stein report that came out regarding Al Horford and him potentially, or as he said, destined to go to the Golden State Warriors. And it was actually in his report, in the context of the Jonas Valanciunas situation. This situation where Jonas has apparently already engaged in conversations with a team over in Greece, and he would like to be bought out or be relieved from his contract with the Denver Nuggets so that he can go overseas and play. And Denver does not want to let him do that. Denver wants to force him to honor his contract. The main reason being that they need a backup center to play off of Jokic. And, obviously Daron Holmes is a interesting option, but he's young and coming off of an Achilles tear, so you don't want to be like super dependent on that. And as Mark Stein pointed out in that report, there's not another great option to pivot to. Horford is really the only other guy out there. And as I mentioned, and as Mark Stein mentioned, it appears that he's headed to Golden State in all likelihood. So the point is there's not a lot of really quality options out there in the free agent market. Now, the Lakers did end up re-signing Jaxson Hayes. I think he'll do fine as a backup. I wouldn't be surprised if they keep someone like Christian Koloko around on a two-way contract to help, with certain defensive looks. But Maxi Kleber, I think, is going to end up being a guy. I wouldn't be surprised if Maxi ends up basically winning the backup center spot from Jaxson Hayes. The main reason why is, let's look at the situation. The Lakers under JJ Redick have done a lot more switching. This is a big in Maxi Kleber that I think that's his specific strength compared to most backup centers around the league. Maxi is a pretty solid switch defender. He moves his feet pretty well. He's got good instincts. He takes good angles. He's just generally better at that than most of the backup center level players that are out there. And so he already has chemistry with Luka as like a stretch five. I could see Maxi just beating Jaxson out for that secondary spot. But again, there's not a lot of great options out there in the free agent market. And I think going from Ayton to having three different kind of like backup options for different looks, like Jaxson Hayes being your traditional rim runner for certain looks where you need his vertical spacing, a Christian Koloko on a two-way contract as more of like a defensive-minded motor big for certain situations, and then Maxi Kleber as the veteran stretch five that can defend in a switching scheme. I think that that's perfectly fine considering the Lakers were able to achieve that center rotation without having to give up really anything in the way of assets, which maintains their asset flexibility if they want to make a move for a wing, someone like an Andrew Wiggins or a Herb Jones, something along those lines. I know the trend and emphasis for NBA bigs in recent years has been threes and stretching the floor, but hearing about talented guys like Ayton having more potential than actual post game, why does a guy like that not really go after developing a serious post game? You watch McHale in his torture chamber and Olajuwon in the Dream Shake. If a guy like Ayton really went after some of those guys and even had a poor man's level, he would be better than most in the league or could handle. I guess it's just not having the drive. Going by his inattentive, mediocre overall defense, I guess it's that. So this is a complicated issue, and I actually think this is a very interesting topic that you're bringing up here with this question. So why is it that we don't see more post-up players dominating in the NBA? If you go look at Synergy, for example, the high-volume guys, the Jokic's, the Embiids, those types of guys, they are in like an entirely different tier of volume of post-ups, and then there's just like a giant drop-off, and there's just not that many guys who do it outside of those two. Now, even Jokic compared to Embiid brings another level to just the sheer amount of posting up that he does. And so my theory with this actually has more to do with the way the game has changed defensively and how difficult it is to generate offense out of the post if you can't pass the ball. So with the way that teams space the floor defensively now, and with the type of athleticism and speed that's on the floor, it's very easy to load up on a post player and make one pass available, an over the top pass that goes across the court to the opposite corner or to the opposite wing that usually has to go through a bunch of traffic or has to fly looping over the top in order to get there. And it's just a lot easier than it used to be to double team or shade or heavily send help towards a post player and take away that option without really conceding anything super damaging. I've watched this for years as a guy who covers Anthony Davis, and Anthony Davis made progress and got better at it, but there was a reason why they never went to Anthony Davis the same volume that they went to Nikola Jokic in Denver, and it was because inevitably, if he had some success down there, teams would start loading up, and AD just couldn't make the reads. When I was evaluating Ayton as part of the Lakers signing him, and I went back and watched all of this tape, Ayton's post-ups often went awry because he didn't trust his ability to go to power because of the help defense, and so he'd either turn it over against the help defense or he would settle for some difficult over-the-top shot, and that really is the final piece of it. If you want to put everything together to be an elite, high-volume post player in the NBA, you have to have the combination of really physically imposing size with high level playmaking to be able to break apart the defense when they load up on you. And then the third piece of it is the touch. Like, we talk about this all the time with layups. You watch these guys around the league, when it comes to layups, sometimes they're shooting 50, 55%. The really good layup shooters are 60, 65%. It's because anything that is a 2-point shot that is contested, that isn't a wide open layup or a dunk, the percentages and the efficiency tank from there. 55% on a layup is like 1.1 points per shot. That's not great for a layup, right? You're expecting more efficiency there. And it craters even further when you go out further away. Like, let's say you've got a decent hook shot. Like, you've got your 45% on hook shots. That seems like a good percentage, right? That's only 0.9 points per attempt. And so there's a level of short range shot making that you need in order to be a reliable post-up threat as well, to command the defense a certain way to unlock that playmaking talent. That's why you look at Jokic, it just kind of feels like Jokic and then the rest of the league when it comes to posting up. It's because of that difficult dynamic. There's Ayton has actually a decent hook shot, but he really struggles to handle all the help side defense. And so defenders press up on him, they pack the paint, he turns the ball over, he settles for these turnaround fadeaway jump shots that he can't make. Even with Jokic, when he has to go to further away shot making, like some of those turnarounds, like some of those deeper hook shots, he can still make those at 55, 60%. And that's what makes him such a dynamic post player. But I think that the league has just become so fast and so sophisticated defensively that teams have just found a way to greatly diminish the impact of post players if they do not have those talents. And, when we see other guys, like you look at a Şengün, for instance, who's had some impact as a post player, it's power mixed with short range shot making, and he's got some playmaking talent, although it's not where it needs to be at the level of the best post players in the league. But that's why it's not as simple as just, you got to go into the gym and rep out footwork and hook shots. No, that's not the pathway to success in the post in the NBA. It is a combination of that with reliable short-range shot making and the ability to interpret what the defense is doing and to make the reads. And there just aren't that many guys who can do that.